larger availability of capital where those individuals would be able to reasonably put their money into the type of lifestyle where they would be satisfied in 5 to 10 years, 10 to 15 years, where guaranteedly in 20 years, everybody would be where they wanted to be at in life financially, regardless of what career they have, and they would be able to live a more successful life. So we're going to be talking about that because that does play a key factor in modern dating, because we have a lot of relationships that are solely designed specifically based on whether or not a guy is making 100,000 a year, right? And if he's not making 100,000 a year, typically we have certain women that don't value that man because they expect him to make a hell of a lot more money. However, poor decision-making skills from all parties involved, the money isn't being spent the way it should be spent or invested the way it should be invested, and two reasonably successful individuals cannot come together and make themselves financially successful. Instead, they end up deeper and deeper in debt. So we're going to be covering these things throughout the next couple of weeks so that you guys can understand that you could not be broke. You could find a $55,000 a year man and not be broke. Or, you know, you can keep hunting for that $100,000 a year man, but a $100,000 a year man at 6'5" is going to be looking for a 5'4", $30,000 a year woman that doesn't talk back. So it's going to be a really wild dynamic. Really wild dynamic. But again, you know, while things don't always add up, I'm going to help you guys make it make sense. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with today's topic, because most digital nomads in Sri Lanka are fixated on some of the wrong numbers because they're obsessed with a single figure, that $800 a month salary. I mean, it or not the salary, the lifestyle. It is truthfully remarkable that the entire standard of living, for a comfortable standard of living at that, could be done at $800 a month. In America, we could barely find an apartment that is $800 a month where we're the only person living in that apartment. So the question is always asked, you know, how can I live on less? And how can I make my budget stretch just a little bit more? And this was the reality of a lot of individuals that go to Sri Lanka. So when you get there, there's this incredible island with an exact scarcity mindset where you're turning your life into a complicated spreadsheet, totally convinced that the ultimate digital nomad win was just surviving on as little as possible. But that's the wrong game to play. When you go to Sri Lanka, stretching every single dollar until it's screamed for mercy is not what you're going to benefit from. You're going to discover that after a while, but we have a secret that the save money nomads are completely missing out on. The real hack isn't about being broke or just living like you're broke. It's about using the low cost of living to build your own small empire. The true potential here isn't unlocked by pitching pennies. It's unlocked when you stop thinking like a tourist and start thinking like an investor. This is the story of how we go from obsessing over a $800 monthly budget to funding unique local businesses that are now capable of generating a whole new income stream for the type of individual that puts this together. One not fond of freelance platforms would be able to benefit from this, because this information isn't even located on freelance platforms. So we're going to show you how you could start to see the opportunities that exist even in Sri Lanka. So let's rewind a bit. Picture this. If you landed in Colombia, or no, Colombo, that's the uh, thick air of Sri Lanka, with the smell of jasmine and diesel in the air, right? You might think freelance income could be a little bit shaky here. Unpredictable, $800 a month. Well, the goal drilled into your head by countless blogs and YouTube videos is going to be simple. Make that $800 last for 30 days, right? And so the game begins. I wouldn't have done that. I would have said, well, $800 a month, I'm going to swing around there with 2,400 just to see what to do. But you bolt from the capital almost immediately. Colombo, with a slightly higher price, might feel like a threat to your fragile budget. So you'll take a rattling 7-hour train into the hill country and end up in a small town near Kandy, right? That ticket might cost you a couple dollars. First tiny victory in the battle of frugality. Then you might find yourself with a new home in a small room uh, in a family's house, since you're doing this by yourself. It's got a wobbly fan, mattress from another decade, and a balcony overlooking uh, concrete and a concert of barking dogs, right? But it was cheap. Rent and utilities set you back about $250 a month. Biggest hit to your budget. Your days fall into a rigid rhythm dedicated by your Excel sheets. The mornings are freelance writing on the balcony, trying to tune out the world. The internet is a total lottery. And while fiber connections are improving in Sri Lanka, you find yourself in a little corner where the area of internet connection is a gamble. Now, you lean to you learn how to tether your phone to your internet. And I tell people this all the time. We actually had this conversation the other day. If your regular bandwidth isn't working, hotspot your cell phone to your computer. Because if your cell phone's got connection, your cell phone's got data. If your cell phone's got data, your laptop's got data, right? A local SIM with a big data package could cost you around $15 a month in Sri Lanka. Way cheaper than like $75 a month with some of the local data centers in America. But it's necessary, even though it's an annoying expense. Food would be the next battlefield, where the amazing smelling kuto roti from the street side shops, minor luxury. A local meal that could cost $2 to $4 though. So it sounds cheap, but when an entire food budget is $180 for the month, $2 to $4 a day could add up. So you might decide to cook yourself a meal every single day. Your diet is dal, rice, and whatever vegetables were cheapest at the market. You learn the Chinal names for produce out of financial necessity, not cultural curiosity. And you'd haggle over a few rupees for bananas, feeling a weird mix of pride and shame. And you was living, but wasn't really living the way you would prefer. More so, probably just existing. Uh, Transport was either going to be on your own 2 feet or by crowded public buses that cost less than $1. So when you get one of those tuk-tuk rides, even for $1 or two, it feels like a crazy splurge for emergencies only, like getting caught in a monsoon. So your leisure budget was about $80 a month, right? And that would cover a temple visit here and there, maybe a single carefully planned day trip a safari in one of the famous national parks, but a dream that could cost $40 to $50 more than half of your entire monthly budget for entertainment might not be well within your reach. Now, this kind of experience was a few years back, and while costs have crept up a little since the economic recovery, the principle is the same. So, here's what that survival budget might look like, with a blueprint that many nomads still follow. Your rent and utilities, typically $280 for a very basic local room. Um, it's going to be more than that, probably double when you start getting your own space where you don't have to worry about roommates or anything to that effect. Food being $180, almost all from the market, with maybe 3 or 4 cheap local meals out a month. I'm sticking to the $400 a month food budget, which is going to be more than double that. Transport is going to be about $35 a month, which is mostly buses and walking. But me and my dog is going to roll places, so we're probably going to either have a cab or probably have to rent a car. Phone and internet might be about $15 for local SIM cards with data, but my T-Mobile international plan is like $350 a month. So, and they operate in some of the other countries that we're talking about going to. Leisure and miscellaneous spending might be about $80 for everything else. Visa fees, toothpaste, rare beers. Yeah, I'd probably double that too. Either way, the cookware spaces, $0. Oh no, I'm sorry, co-working spaces, $0. That's not even an option. You're not really dealing with anything with co-working spaces. Now, buffer for savings, leftover $210, going to be a little anxiety fund. Not really savings. It's money that you're terrified to spend since you're trying to live on such a tight, close-knit budget. But if this is what you're doing with a $800 budget, you can imagine if you had a $2,000 or $2,500 budget, that you would have another $1,400 set aside that you're not needing. Now, on top of the money anxiety, if you're trying to squeeze this $800 budget out, is the visa anxieties. The official Sri Lanka digital nomad visa seems like a distant dream because it's requiring a documented income of $2,000 a month. Now, that figure might feel astronomical if you're trying to squeeze $800 a month out of your budget. But if you understand that a digital nomad visa requires you to at least have a $2,000 a month income, if you're trying to establish a digital nomad, you might be bringing with you $2,500 to $3,000 a month. So if you could slip off of your $800 a month budget into a $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month budget just so that you can live a little bit more comfortable, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. But like every other digital nomad that is doing a visa run, getting a 30-day tourist visa requires you to apply for extensions to stay up to 270 more days. Then you got to fly out and back again if you're doing these 30-day tourist visas. But a digital nomad visa or work visa might give you 12 months. So it's constant low-level stress to remind you that your place in the country is far more than temporary. After 6 months of that, the magic would wear off of you and the beautiful sunsets are still there, but you're seeing them through a filter of financial strain if you're continuously bouncing around from place to place. So while it still could be perceived as paradise, you might find yourself too broke to really enjoy it if you're going there on such a limited budget. So one of the things you might want to do, bring you a little extra money and be able to explore some of the ancient cities. calculate some of the bus fare, deciding on how much you would need to get out there. Then, you might find yourself remembering one afternoon that you're sitting on your balcony watching the rain fall, and then, turn down a weekend trip hanging out with friends. I think that when you're going into other countries, it is your best interest to finagle with the locals. No matter how antisocial you are in America, if you go to another country, you want to make it a point to talk to strangers. Because they should, while you risk losing a kidney, you're not going to know where all the entertainment is, and you're not going to know where all of the best deals are, or and where all the best business opportunities are, if you're sticking to your own knowledge of the country, which is far limited because you only know what you've experienced or what you've been told by somebody else. Now, other travelers would justify the cost. Some people that are living on that $800 a month budget probably won't. They instead would find themselves with a wave of frustration, escaping that 9 to 5 rat race in America, only to build a new cage, which is a self-imposed prison of scarcity in a whole nother country, just trying to get that frugality in your mindset. The game of how to be a broke nomad is not a game that you should be trying to play, because the prize is just being broke in a beautiful place. Yeah, you're not spending as much money as you would have spent in America, but if you have a $4, 5, $7,000 a month income in the United States, you should at least take half of that with you to another country. When you realize that this is not the dream, and then you guys start to wonder, was all the energy that you put into saving money completely missing the point? That's when you start paying attention to this podcast, because the shift is not going to happen overnight from being overly conservative to reasonably budgeting. Other digital nomads might not pay attention to this, but you'll find yourself stuck in the same broke by the beach loop, which is where we're going to start the conversation with Sri Lanka. If you find yourself in a place like Sri Lanka, you can find yourself coming across individuals with like tuk-tuk drivers, and uh, you could rent one of these from as a local businessman. And every morning, a nomad would see the meticulous, cleaned out space. One afternoon, you might find yourself talking to one of the locals, explaining that after paying for daily rental fees and fuel, what's left? The dream is to own your own tuk-tuk, right? If you owned it, you wouldn't have to worry about renting space out. This money goes straight into your pocket, doubling your income on a good day. Now, as we mentioned, the cost for a good tuk-tuk, secondhand, of course, in Sri Lanka, in the price of rupees, the number sounded massive out of habit. Now, the nomads would do the conversion, and this is going to be something to around the realm of $1,500 in US dollars if you were getting a secondhand tuk-tuk. Now, this is going to be the first light bulb that's going to flicker on in the mindset of a businessman, because a $1,500 tuk-tuk is 8 months of anxiety fund. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Terrifying amount to put into your thoughts to part with if you're trying to live on such a scarce budget. However, in the local economy, that same $1,500 wasn't just cash. It's a productive asset, a machine that could generate a daily income, because it's the key to financial independence. For someone who owns it, It's a cash flowing investment. You start seeing the whole country differently. Now, take a woman selling egg hoppers on the corner. Uh, what do you think that might cost her for the cart? A few $100s. A family rents it from a hand built uh, expert, put you an extra floor with 2 rooms of people on it. The initial investment is now likely sustaining the whole family, right? So your tuk-tuk with a cart hopper building up a, 2 room unit. Now you can rent it out to the person with a family who's the cart hopper, small business person. You can potentially invest in them as well. Now, this is going to be geographic arbitrage because it's not how nomads usually talk about things. But if we think of it defensively, earning dollars, spend rupees, and survive on the difference. If you do that, you suddenly see a new offensive weapon. Now, the same economic gap that lets you live cheaply also creates an investment opportunity with incredible lower barriers to entry. So your dollars, which might have felt weak back in the United States, might have real power in Sri Lanka. Your savings aren't going to just be a safety net now, they're going to be the seed capital in investing in other types of businesses. Now, this is going to be your aha moment because you might find yourself killing yourself trying to earn US dollars online just to convert them into a pile of rupees to pay for the rent and a dahal. That's when you're on the wrong side of the equation. If instead of just being a customer, you put yourself and those rupees to work, you stop asking, how can I save more of my $800 and start asking a new question, much more exciting? How can my savings generate income for me right here in Sri Lanka? Now, this is going to be a totally new mindset from scarcity to opportunity, from a passive visitor to an active participant. The idea might be a little bit terrifying, but it is the capabilities of a digital nomad if you have the right playbook. It's going to involve a little risk, a little bit of trust, but for the first time, you might find yourself on a path to real sustainable life in a completely new country, not just a long, cheap vacation. So the Sri Lanka secret wasn't about how little you could spend, it was about how much you could build. Now, this is where things get real. And before we go any further, going to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. This is not formal financial advice. This is just high risk informal investment ideas that we've actually come across from a lot of research. So you can't just pull your money out tomorrow and, you know, run out there and think that success is going to be like a hit first thing in the morning. Success depends heavily on the relationships and the trust in your environment. But if you become the protagonist in a story like this, the only thing that you'll ever find is investing money that you can afford to lose, treating it as an experiment. You make sure to document everything in writing, even if it's a simple agreement, to protect everyone involved. You want to get names and dates and phone numbers and addresses. Be very detailed, be very meticulous. You want to have a little black book of transactions, agreements, payouts, due dates, collection dates, all of that, like a bookie. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the first steps. You don't just have some grand master plan because you're starting with a conversation that sparks a whole idea. Let's try that tuk-tuk case study. If your first move is going to back to your somebody that you know that has a tuk-tuk, and if you spent weeks talking to these individuals, doing your due diligence, communicating with these particular people, not a company, the individual owners of the properties, you're able to build trust. Trust is going to be the most important currency in Sri Lanka. The idea is the demand for tuk-tuks is constant. So if you help an individual who already has access to tuk-tuks buy their own tuk-tuks, it would be a win-win. Your joint venture would get the other person independence and better earnings, and you'd get a share of the profits from a real cash producing asset. I help you, you pay me. Your business partner is going to be a perfect tool for success because they're experienced and reliable and know the business inside out. This is the type of mindset that you want to have. It's not about you going to another country, putting your feet on the ground and building something from the ground up yourself. It's about you going to another country, finding other people who have fantastic, payable business ideas and investing in their idea and having them scale their business up and paying you for helping them get better. Because somebody else who knows how to do this, they'll have their own operational expertise and well, the expertise, where you as the nomad would just have the capital to help them be successful. So you're going to have a pretty decent deal here. You're deciding against a simple loan. Instead, you're going to propose a joint venture. So you're going to provide the money for a quality secondhand tuk-tuk. They have a written agreement that they would operate the business, cover daily costs like fuel, and they'd split the net profits. They also agreed to set aside 10% of the gross income for a maintenance fund. That way, they're not telling you, oh, I can't pay you because I had to fix X, Y, and Z. No, we're taking 10% out of the gross funds to cover maintenance, and you're going to cover all of the other expenses, and whatever's left, we split that 50-50. This isn't just an investment anymore. It's the business that both of these people are working with. When you start crunching the numbers, you'll find that a well-maintained uh, Baja tuk-tuk for 520,000 uh, rupees, which is about 1,500 US dollars at that time, based on chats and conversations, could estimate daily net earnings after fuel is about $3,000, which is $8.50 over a 25-day month. That's about 75,000 rupees, which is about $250 in net. If you split that, you would have 37,500 rupees a piece, or about $107 a month. Now, keep in mind, you only spent $1,500 for this. So if you put up $1,500 one time, inside of 10 to 15 months, you would have broken even on your investment. The potential here is staggering, because if this is the capabilities of this particular type of venture, every year you could double down on the investment, where you can go from one nook nook to two nook nooks in year two to four nook nooks in year three, and you go from $100 a month to $200 a month to $400 a month in a country where you could potentially live off of $800 a month. But you also got to make sure that you handle the paperwork, because this is going to be very critical. If you draft a simple memorandum of understanding in both English and Sinhala, it outlines the investment, the profit split, and the maintenance fund, and an exciting exit clause for you. Because after 2 years of this particular type of endeavor, if you're going to, you know, either stay or leave, the other person could potentially buy out your shares at the pre-agreed price. Where uh, if you guys agree on this, y'all can have the business, start the business up, build the business up, and then when he starts making plenty of money, the other person starts making plenty of money, they can buy you out, and you can take your money and go and invest in something else. Or they can keep you invested, and instead of buying you out, they just continue to help to pay you, and you continue to reinvest into the business and expand the business to keep increasing your revenue stream. That's always a thing. Now, the day you buy the tuk-tuk, it's going to be a very incredible experience, because the pride from one investor's side, you get to see the look on their face when they're worth more than the return that you're getting. From the nomad side of things, you're no longer just a foreign customer because you're a business partner with the local. A second case study would be funding a niche food stall. Now, if your monthly income is potentially gone from $800 to $900 because you're getting $100 a month from that Nook Nook situation, you don't upgrade your lifestyle. You reinvest in it. So the idea here would be, living in the hills. You notice tourists and younger locals craving good coffee, but the tourist cafes are going to be expensive. Imagine a small mobile cafe cart that's selling high quality, affordable coffee. Now, you might find a partner, young woman who has been a barista in a fancy Colombo hotel, right? Now, this lady might have the skills and the passion, but zero capital. This is where the deal is going to start up. If the startup cost of this mapped out would have a cart like the cart we were talking about earlier, an espresso machine, a grinder, an initial inventory that might come up to around 280,000 rupees or around $800. And the deal would be similar to the one with the Nook Nook. You fund the startup, you run the business, and you split the net profits 60-40 this time. 60% for the barista, 40% for you. Since this is going to allow her to do all the work, of the partner to do all the work, 40% for you seems reasonable. Now, figure if you sell just 30 cups of coffee a day, which is very easy to do in a place where everybody's drinking coffee, for like 400 rupees, where that's $1.15 each. Way cheaper than the cafes, which means that you're going to have a daily net profit of around 8,400 rupees, which is like $24. Your 40% might be $9.60 a day. And if they're working just 20 days a month, that's going to be the potential of $192 per month. Not a lot of money in comparison to 10, 15, $20,000 in America. But if you went to Sri Lanka with 10 grand and you spent $1,500 on a Nook Nook thing, and you're about to spend another $1,500, well, no, $800 on this, you would have spent $2,300, and you still have your $800 a month lifestyle with more income coming in, because you got $192 from the second venture and a little over $100 from the first venture, which means that now you have $292, almost $300 from both of those ventures. Now, realistically, this is projected closer to anywhere between $90 to $100 a month, but for the sake of your $800 investment, it's going to be another home run for you. So you might launch a Hillside Brews small barista cart, and quickly become a local favorite. Third case study, uh, digital local hybrid guest house booking website. Now, I didn't even expect this, but if you try this for a third venture, tiptoeing around Sri Lanka, you want to use your skills to actually bring other people to Sri Lanka. You come up with an idea such as talking to the landlady that's renting your place. They have guest houses. Those guest houses need bookings, and they're doing this on a tattered old notebook. The people you're talking to, they have no online presence. While foreigners can start businesses in tourism, a service partnership is very simple, much more simpler. So an investment opportunity here is you would invest monthly time and skill. You offer to build a professional website with a booking system listed on booking platforms and teach the landlady how to use it. Your upfront cost is going to be very minimal, about $150 for the theme, hosting, and plugins. Not a lot of money. Why? Because your money is going to come on the back end. The deal is that you guys agree on 15 cents per commission for every booking that comes directly through your website. It's zero risk for them and guaranteed profit for you with little or no work. Expecting it to work, the facility will start getting more customers, more than they would have reached out to otherwise, and you would get more commissions. The way the numbers will work out is if you have a 2-room scenario, that's about $20 a night. If the site generated 10 bookings, 10 book nights a month, that's $200 in revenue, and you get about $15 of that, and that's like $30 in commissions. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you just made $150 to get it started, and you're getting $30 a month commissions off of this, and almost $250 worth of commissions on the other stuff, which puts you closer to $300. But that's almost entirely passive after you set up the website. Again, you have 3 different scenarios where you're making money and you don't have to do anything other than give somebody else money to run their idea. So you might be netting something around $60 to $75 a month with this particular idea. If you replicate this model with 10 other guest houses in the same situation, and you're going to get better at putting up the advertisements and listings, because as you find new ways to tweak it, because you're going to want to make sure that the next place doesn't look like the last place, you're going to be sharpening things up and improving things. 3 small ventures with a total cash investment of about $2,300 would now be generating a supplemental income of somewhere around $250 to $300 a month, where you put no effort into it, and that is your commission, your cut, your profit, without having to worry about maintenance fees. Your financial world is completely changing in this magnitude, because if you expand on any one of these ventures, or expand on all 3 of these ventures, you can turn that from $300 a month from one individual. This is $300 a month between three people, one in each niche, to say doubling that, tripling that, quadrupling that. You find 3 people with tuk-tuks, 3 people with baristas, 3 people with guest houses. You're looking at $900 a month in a country where $800 a month would get you by. If you were trying to rub pennies together on your own, $800 a month from America, if you've got $800, $900 coming in from Sri Lanka, you now have $1,700. Remember that digital nomad is $2,000 minimum. You're not that far away. The combined effect of these small investments, it would be life-changing for you. And it's not just about the money. It's about a fundamental shift in your entire experience. Look at some new numbers real quick. If your baseline income is a shaky $800 from freelance work, after about a year, your monthly income would look something like this. You have your $800 worth of freelance work, base, but not your only lifeline. Your tuk-tuk's like $107 on average. Your coffee barista cart's like $95 on average. Your guest house is around $70 on average. Your monthly income's roughly around $1,075. That extra $275 might not sound like a lottery win, but in a place like Sri Lanka, it's revolutionary. It completely destroyed the stressful spreadsheet mentality. The consistent low grade anxiety about money is going to just vanish. The transformation from a life of pinching pennies to a life of investing in other individuals would be very huge. And you would be able to move from a very small location, from a room that you're renting from somebody else, into your own one bedroom apartment with proper kitchens and this is going to be crucial, reliable fiber internet for your online digital nomad job. So you go where rent's like $350, might be a bit more than what you were doing before, but now you're totally affordable with the new income that you have. You could double your food budget, not just eat extravagantly, but just, be able to say yes without guilt. You can enjoy local restaurants, buy fresh tuna from the fish market, and have beers with the friends and families without having to worry about stretching your budget too thin. Now, safaris might be a little bit off at this moment, but you're just getting started. You won't have to worry about the cost if you did decide to go watch the elephants because you do have a little bit more money to cover your overhead. You could afford to rent a scooter instead of dealing with the public transportations. And this will give you the freedom to explore and find new business ventures. Your life is no longer going to be defined by what you can't do, but what you're capable of. Most importantly, it's going to create a path forward because the visa problem, which is that scary $2,000 a month income requirement for digital nomad visas, doesn't seem so impossible anymore because your freelance income plus documented local income channeled through the local bank account is pushing from that threshold, way from that threshold. So for the first time in this particular venture, you would see clearly a path to long-term legal residency in the country if you wasn't already getting funneled in $3,000 to $5,000. But I tell you what, if I was going to move to another country like Sri Lanka or uh, Istanbul or Israel or something to that effect, wherever I would go, I would probably, on my first venture out, open up an account, open up a local bank account, then attach that local bank account to my account in America. And then while I'm not in that country, I will be wiring that country money every month. If a digital nomad requires you to have $2,000 a month of income, that's $24,000 a year. If there's $30,000 in your bank account, you're kind of a shoe-in, okay? And then if you can show that you're dropping $2,000 a month or $4,000 a month into your Sri Lanka bank account before you even got over there, they already know that you're capable of pulling it off. You're able to maintain that standard of living. You're able to maintain that visa. And if you're only going to do this for a year, you know, it's not that hard to set up business ventures while you're out there so that when you come back, you're already set up to live because your income is generating while you're not there. Now you're only really going into the country to get paid. And you're also building roots. So beyond the money, the real change is your connections to the place and the people. If you're no longer an outsider looking in, you'll be able to establish that your success being tied to the success of the people that you meet and do joint ventures with is going to be more gratifying for you than simply huddling up in a room somewhere trying to stretch the internet as far as it'll go. You'll find yourself in the morning greeting one business partner, checking in, buying coffee from the other business partner, checking up on progress, and then looking into some of the other business partners and seeing if you can start up even more business opportunities. You might find yourself invited to family dinners and local festivals, weddings, and other such things where you're no longer just some guy with a laptop. You'll find yourself with friends and business partners as well and become part of the community. And that's where the real wealth will be in these types of adventures. So the Sri Lanka secret is realizing that the path to richer lifestyles isn't about saving more money. It's about investing it, investing capital, but also trust, time, and genuine partnership. You can't make money without spending money outside of putting in a deep quantity of effort that has a monetary value. But if this mind shift from saving to investing makes sense to you, let me know in the comment section which of the ideas that you found most interesting. The hands-off tuk-tuk partnership, that hands-off startup food truck, or the digital nomad or the digital local hybrid scenario where you are creating a website for a local listing. Your feedback really helps us figure out what we'll be covering next. So what's the Sri Lanka secret? It's realizing a nomad's greatest asset isn't just earning dollars online. It's the physical presence in a place where those dollars have magnified power. It's about challenging the scarcity mindset, the uh, dominance of the digital nomad and the world around it. The goal shouldn't be to see how cheaply you can live, but how much you can build, which is a very strong observation that we have in comparison to last night's show. Because last night, guys, were talking about different ways that we could rub pennies together to make it make sense. You don't always have to squeeze blood out of a turnip. A lot of times, you can just invest in a turnip factory and make money off of that. So, one of the mindsets that we have to have is that you can't just be a customer in a temporary home. You have to be a contributor. You have to be a partner and be an investor. The opportunities to create win-win situations and generate a return for yourself while empowering local entrepreneurs are everywhere around the world, not just in Sri Lanka. You just have to change how you're looking at life. Stop searching for the cheapest guest house and start searching for a person with a great idea who just needs a little capital to get started. That's how you go from a broke nomad to a local investor. And that's also how you build true rich lifestyles while on the road. Is Sri Lanka on the US tourist list? Uh, Sri Lanka is, if I remember correctly, in Asia, and I don't understand what do you mean by is it on the US tourist list? Is it one of the countries that we're banned from? No. Is that one of the ones that like the US really likes? I mean, they just did a deal with Japan and China, so Sri Lanka's right around the corner. So that's a pretty good question to ask. Is it on the US tourist list? But here's a more interesting question, though, Michael, because we've talked about probably 60 countries over the last year, right? And we've also talked about dual citizenship, right? And we've also talked about your ability to get visas from other countries where you could go to Colombia or Belarus or Taipei, something like that, right? Do what you got to do to get your visa from there, and then fly to Sri Lanka. Lots of countries. So it's not necessarily one of the things that we've always talked about is having dual citizenship or dual residency, dual visas from multiple countries is that you're not limited to a direct flight from the United States. You would be able to hop a plane from Seattle and fly to a US friendly country using your US passport and then use your foreign passport to fly to a not so US friendly country. The no travel red flag that the US puts up is if they find out that you're a US citizen because they have bad terms with US citizens, like squeezing your way into North Korea, you might not find yourself making it out alive. That is not what we're talking about here. If you have the ability to go to other countries, even if it's a direct flight, and you're able to establish residency, local visas, and then you want to travel to another country from the country that you're in, where the country you're in is not the United States. You don't have to use a U.S. visa to go to another country from the second country. You just go straight to the third country from the second country. Now, if you choose to use your U.S. visa, that's a thing. Now, that's a ridiculous question to ask. Can a U.S. citizen buy real estate in North Korea knowing that we have no ties, business, or peace with North Korea? I know that you're laughing in the background while you're waiting for me to respond to this particular question, but you really have to think about it logically. Since we're not allowed to go there with a U.S. passport, why would you be allowed from Korean authorities to buy property as an American citizen in Korea, North Korea specifically? There are countries that do not allow foreigners of any country to buy their land. You can lease it for 100 years, but you can't buy it. You can go there from a foreign domestic business that you set up, but unless a local has 60% or more ownership of it, you can't buy it. But there are other countries like Japan where they have no problem with you buying their land. You can buy their land as a local, a citizen, like a U.S. citizen going over there and just buying land to buy land. You can go there as a real estate business and buy land and build the land up. There are a lot of countries that allow you to buy real estate, but it's not necessarily. But that's a trick question. You can't. Everything is state owned. You certain countries you can, and those countries that you do that with would be countries that are able to or not able to, willing to do foreign business in real estate. So if it was, I'm believing that you're asking that question to try to test to see how much I know about North Korea when we're talking about Sri Lanka, not the same place. I don't know. I might cover North Korea, but I might actually just cover South Korea just when I cover Korea because we can go to South Korea. But even if everything wasn't state owned in North Korea, you have to understand as an American citizen, you can't go there. Even if every other country can go there and buy something, you can't go there directly from the United States because we do not have positive standings with the North Korean government. But if you're trying to find countries that does sell to foreigners, one of the first things you would do is your research to find out if that country and talk to their UN and find out if that country, their local embassy, allows for sale of real estate to foreign entities. And they'll tell you, some will say only to businesses, some will say only to residents for um, homesteads. Some might say, yeah, all the way around. Every country is different when it comes to that. But as it pertains to Sri Lanka, you have the ability. Do South Korea next? I don't think I'm doing South Korea next, but I will put South Korea on the list. I am strategically covering the affordable ones and then some of the interesting ones that have some pretty unique cultures that we might want to look into. But I will be covering South Korea eventually because it really depends on what I find interesting about the country when I do the research of the country, and then what I discover we can benefit from financially. Because going to another country just because it's cheap is not always the best thing for us. Because first and foremost, you have to be able to establish a general income. If you haven't already built a revolving line of finances that will pay for your standard of living, especially if you're trying to maintain your US standard of living, you will be paying for your house in America and paying for your house in whatever country that you go to. That's way more money. If you had a $24,000 a year lifestyle that you had to pay for with no additional expenses, and you go to another country and now you're paying $2,000 a month to stay there, you're paying $40,000 to $50,000 a year to stay in a different country, which means that including the round trip cost, you would need to be making more than 50 or 60,000 for the year in order for your entire lifestyle to be paid for in America while your lifestyle is being paid for in another country, plus the ability to fly there and fly back. You need to be able to make that kind of money first, right? And typically, the more money Americans make, the more they increase their financial standard of living, or the more wasteful they are. They're buying more bullshit and not really focusing on the prize. So it's not about just going to another country and living on a smaller income, because every 9 to 5er that's working in a brick and mortar place that could be making 65,000 a year, if they quit their job and go to another country, they're no longer making 65,000 a year. You have to transition from working in a brick and mortar company to being a digital nomad. So whether you're working off the computer with your current company, where you're no longer working in person and you're allowed to work in another country, or if you start up your own business and you're getting paid off your computer and then you take your computer with you to another country, whatever works best for you, you would be generating an income, regular income for yourself, which is why the digital nomad would work for you, because you're getting paid every month a certain quantity of money, and there's no hiccups in your income. So, for example, if you wanted to go to a country that has like a $2,000 a month standard of living, where you're living comfortable with no problems, you don't have to penny pinch or anything to that effect, you might fly out there. You're going to be there for 90 days. You might fly out there with $6,000 plus your monthly income being wire transferred over. So you might fly over to the new country, set up a bank account. If you're smart, you're going to fly with a cashier's check so that you don't have to worry about the feds stealing your money, because they'll rob you the same way they're murdering people in the street. They'll rob you. So fly over there with a cashier's check, deposit it into their bank. Yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of your $6,000 due to currency exchange, but regardless of the fact, especially if you know currency exchange is going to hurt, you might want to bring an extra 10% and roll up there with 6,600 or $7,000 with the expectation to live $6,000 worth of money in Sri Lanka for 90 days. And then you're still working at the same time, and you're generating an income, and your income is still being deposited into your account in Sri Lanka, assuming that whatever you're putting into your Sri Lanka bank account is different from the money that's paying all your bills in America. Then in that situation, you're able to establish a digital nomad visa because you're depositing from outside of their country more than $2,000 a month worth of income into an account that's holding more than $2,000 a month, which will allow you to be able to stay there for a year and not have to renew your visa every 270 days. Yes, I'm broke. I better stay home and invest in America. Well, America costs more money than other countries. Not all of them, just a lot of them. So if you can't make money in another country the way you make money in America, you might want to stay in America. But if you can make the money no matter where you are, then it doesn't matter where you are making the money. That's when you're capable of taking your money and going somewhere else where you can live cheaper because you have more individuals or more income coming in for the same standard. That's what I try to tell you guys. So if you guys want to follow some of these journeys that we have with other countries around the world on Wednesdays that we're going to be talking about, make sure that you guys take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, because in some of our upcoming videos, we're going to be thinking of either doing deep dives into the legal sides of these informal joint ventures, or exploring a totally different investment altogether, because we have micro diaries in the hill countries, and other such adventures that could potentially turn yourself a larger quantity of money in a smaller location. So let me know in the comment sections what kind of investment opportunities in which countries you'd like to look further into, and then I'll see what we come up with. He said my ideas are sound. Yes, my ideas are very sound. See, the idea, when I come up with these ideas, the first thing I come up with is the most unorthodox way to make yourself successful, because of the road most travel has less resources on it. The road less traveled is less thought of. And while it is still doable and there is a lot more lucrative profit into it, you still have to navigate your way through it. First couple of times you do it, you might not get as much profit out of it as it would be once you've mastered it. But just like the eco lofts, just like the ecotourism, where they're turning camping into a luxury resort, just like the green energy. We were talking about hydrogen throughout Monday's show. The fact is that with the new developments of new types of investment opportunities, new types of business ventures, there's more than one way, because you could go to Sri Lanka and you can invest in their ETFs, you can invest in their stock market, you can mine for precious minerals and precious resources, you can get into real estate. But that's the kind of stuff that can be done in most countries around the world, as long as you have the right angles. But what you don't have is the unorthodox, less known, less invested in opportunities in each country. And that is going to be different from country to country. So instead of focusing on the things that everybody can do everywhere, I focus on some of the things that most people don't know that you can do in specific locations. That now I'm actually coming from a different perspective. Instead of the multi-billion-dollar investment opportunities, let's come up with some of these opportunities where the average day-to-day person that can barely afford their Starbucks coffee can actually invest in this particular type of endeavor and make themselves a little bit more successful. Well, my belief is if you want something bad enough, you would figure it out. Well, I would say yes, but typically that only works in desperation. So you start figuring out how to make ends meet when you don't have enough money to get by. But when you have enough money to get by, you typically say, oh, well, and psychologically shut down and don't think about how to better yourself. But if you put more effort into trying to get more out of what you've already got, using what you have to earn more, you will find no limit to how much more you can get. Now, yes, that mentality is driven with a little bit of greed, but it also is driven with a lot of motivation. You're not going to want to get more if you don't need more, unless you know that getting more can allow you to have more to leverage for bigger deals. Once you start having more ability to get more stuff, you will be motivated to get more stuff. What most people don't have is knowledge, which you provide. And that is exactly right. I actually provide the core details for other people to start asking questions. So, like when we started talking about Korea, and I don't remember why. I think I mentioned something that led us to talking about Korea. But when you start talking about Korea, and then you're like, well, do South Korea. If I came up with some information about South Korea in a couple of weeks, you'd be like, oh shit, I didn't know this, that, and the third was going on in South Korea. But 60 something countries that I've covered over the past year, we didn't know that a lot of this stuff was going on in these countries until we researched it, you know? And now, because I provided individuals with new answers to old questions, I'm capable of changing the questions for them, which allows them to go and look for their own answers to figure out what they're going to do next. It's not always going to that same beach resort to the Belize or Bahamas or uh, uh, Haiti or something like that. It's not about just going to the same old places. The tourist spots are heavily localized areas that only people know about from doing research, and it's overpriced because a large quantity of people go to a small place to get the same resources. But once you realize that you can go away from the crowd, get the same stuff for less money, and you can utilize the wholesale value of what you're getting and redistribute it to somebody else for a higher cost, where the scarcity of the accessibility of the top quality product now being sold at a lower price, you could turn a profit on the difference between the market and the market's knowledge. At some point, you'll figure out that you don't need more than you realize. It's time to play. Let's go fishing. Well, you never end up reaching the point that you don't need more. You reach the point where you don't want more. Because here's the thing, you're starting a life off with less. And once you start finding ways to make more, you start reaching a point of having enough. And it's not that you're not going to need more, because it depends on what you consider enough is. If you're making 30,000, 40,000 a year in America, enough might be making 50 or $60,000 in like Japan or Indonesia or Sri Lanka. But at the same time, if you're making $40,000 or $50,000 in America, enough might be making 250,000 in America to live in California. It really depends on exactly what your end goal is. So, really, at some point, you will find yourself either reaching your goal or retiring on your efforts. But it'll be after you have established a decent revolving revenue, because the ultimate goal that should be on everyone's mind is making more money than what you need to survive, so that any fluctuations in the profits that you get is not going to undermine your overhead. But whatever your standard of living in really dictates and decides exactly how much money you need to make. If you're trying to have a $50,000 a year lifestyle in America and a $30,000 lifestyle in Asia, that's $80,000 worth of income plus travel, which is probably $90,000. And it really depends on how much of that you've already got right now. If you have $90,000 worth of, or $100,000 worth of income, and $90,000 of it is going to be utilized for the standard of living, and $10,000 is going to be utilized to invest and save or pay taxes, whatever, then you might say, I've reached my goal. But if you're right at $60,000, you still got another $40,000 to go. It is what it is. Either way, I'm going fishing. Well, either way, I'm going fishing in multiple different countries around the world. The interest from the money pays for everything after you build the principal. So the smart thing is to live off of the interest. But to get to that point, you must build the principal up. So if you wanted a $90,000 interest payment at 10% or more return, you're looking at $900,000 in the bank or more. We just finished talking about yesterday how getting that $900,000 might take you anywhere between 10 and 20 years, depending on how much money you're saving and putting into high interest portfolios. So then when you take that dynamic and you put it into what we were just talking about, you might go from having a 20-year plan to having a 6-year plan because you're putting more money into your portfolio based off of the extra profits you're getting from your business ventures. Is that what do you think about annuities? I don't really have an opinion about annuities. Annuities is an investment option that is good for you. You can put money towards that. It is less volatile than cryptocurrencies, and it's a smarter move than XRP. Uh, I can actually cover annuities in upcoming shows so that I can give you a good rundown on how annuities can be beneficial for your portfolio, but it really depends on what the return rate is on an annuity versus the goals that you're having with your investment opportunities. There's nothing wrong with annuities. You know, one of the issues that I have with certain investment opportunities is if there are penalties for if you take the money out sooner. So if you're building from the ground up, you can start building in an annuity, but you're going to take a percentage of your investments, put it into an annuity, take a percentage of your investments, put it in a health savings account, take a percentage of your investments, put it into the stock market, and build that up like that. Where the money that you're going to be readily accessing first will be the liquidatable brokerage account, because that one doesn't charge you penalties. That's the only difference. But I can run it down and cover annuities. That actually makes sense. I probably, matter of fact, now I think about it, I could probably put something together where I'm covering annuities on Tuesday and then cover a couple other things along with annuities, so that we can understand how they work. But I won't turn down CDs and I won't turn down annuities. They're safer, more stable ways to invest. It's just not necessarily going to be like 18% interest or 17% interest rates. That's the only difference. The interest rates are going to be a lot lower. It might be more than, I haven't checked recently. The annuities might be more than the government bonds, but I would have to double check, because you got to remember any buy and hold savings platform uh, is going to be based off of the interest rates that were cut in December. So what the interest rates used to be for annuities and government bonds might be different in February as we get closer to February. Because as I told you guys before, those the interest rates are going to start to decline. Between 5 to 7% return. Well, but it's on the decline though, because the interest rates got cut. So if they're still holding at 5 to 7%, an annuity might actually be a better investment opportunity than a high interest savings account. But again, one of the concerns I would have is, does an annuity have penalties for early withdrawal? Because outside of the penalties for early withdrawal, 5 to 7% is a safer emergency fund account than a high interest savings account. But typically, the reason why they do high interest savings accounts over annuities is because annuities, just like CDs, have early withdrawal penalties that could be so damaging to you that you lose all of your interest and a percentage of your principal when you take your money out. So all the work you put into building up the principal is going to mean nothing to you if you take it out too soon. Appreciate those details, Michael. Now, I didn't have a lot for you guys for today because Sri Lanka was small, so there was a small issue, a small quantity of information issued for it. So I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I provide you guys with this information to help you guys become higher valued men. So, if you guys take this information and utilize it to find the things in your life that you can control, that you don't like, and change that, and then navigate around the things that you cannot control, then you will be able to find yourself with a more satisfactory life. And then, ladies, while we are a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, then we will still be able to provide y'all with the information as well that will allow you to be higher value women. You just have to prioritize what is better for the advancements of your future, not so much the quick gratification of a guy wasting his money on you on a regular basis. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to tonight's show. Thank you for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.